Talk today will be Brian Stubbs. Brian became involved with Zen practice in 2020. He started coming to PZC in August 2022 and took 5 precepts in April 23 and 10 precepts to become a Dharma teacher in training in 2025. He works as a project manager for a rebar supplier after having worked as an iron worker for 24 years. Brian lives in Coventry, Rhode Island with his wife Debbie, and they have 2 daughters. In answering questions today is our own Zen Master Dae Kwang, José Ramírez. Zen Master Dae Kwang is a co-guiding teacher here at the Providence Zen Center and the guiding teacher of the Delaware Valley Zen Center, which he helped establish in 1999. He began studying Zen with Zen Master Dae Kwang, at the Providence Zen Center in 1994, receiving inka, full authorization to teach, in 2009, and Dharma transmission from Zen Master Dae Kwang, April 1st, 2023. As an industrial statistician, he works with engineers and scientists to help make sense of data. He lives in Rhode Island with his wife and daughter. So thank you both for being here today.
Morning, everybody. I haven't been here on a Sunday morning. It feels like a while. Like I started doing some martial arts training back in the spring, so I don't think I've actually been here on a Sunday morning for this since like June. So it's nice to be here again. Just to give a little bit of background on how I ended up sitting here on November 2nd on a nice fall morning. I grew up kind of like a normal household, which would mean my family was part of the 50% that the parents got divorced, and I can always remember being just kind of a kid that was looking for something. When I was younger, my family was Catholic, and I can remember like trying to get into prayer and all that type of stuff. Like there was always just like this. Felt like something was missing, I guess. And as I got older, I got into like just different stuff. Like I started to get into I wasn't finding an answer. Like the church stuff didn't seem to be giving me an answer. I moved, and we ended up in a different town. And I don't know, just like stuff just always felt off. And that just kept compounding throughout the years. Like we all have our stories of how we ended up sitting in a room like this. And at a certain point, I don't know, the first time I encountered Zen, I was in my early 20s. I had gotten sober when I was 16, and I started to like one of the 12 steps is like to improve your conscious contact through God as you understand Him, blah, 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 blah. And part of that led me to sitting meditation. And I attempted to practice, like I would sit on my own. I had like a buddy of mine, we would occasionally sit together. I actually came here at some point, and I didn't stay. Like it just, I've told this story before, but like I came in, I'm pretty sure it was a Wednesday night, but I wouldn't bet my life on it, but it felt like a Wednesday night the way we do it now. And I don't know if I wasn't paying attention during orientation. There was a good chance I wasn't paying attention during orientation. But we were sitting like in rows along the side, and like walking meditation came. I can just remember sitting there that first time, I don't know how long the sit was, but it just felt like forever. My mind's just going crazy, and I just wanted to stand up. And then all of a sudden, like someone hit the chukpi, and it was time to stand, and walking meditation. And I was sitting like in the front of the back row, and people turned around and were like looking at me, and I panicked and and I left, and I didn't come back for 20 something years. Don't look at me. So anyway, like my search for whatever continued. There's a the First Noble Truth talks about how like there's suffering, like that we can't escape suffering in this world, and there's an analogy I've heard of about being like a cart with a wheel that's just kind of off. like it's not perfectly round, and just that, just just like everything, just even when things were good, it didn't like it was always like it's going to end. You know what I mean? You're always waiting for like the other shoe to drop type of thing. It's just always just like and my life continued. I got married when I was 25. We ended up adopting a couple of girls, and like I was involved in like AA stuff for, I don't know, like 15 years. And then I started to drift away from that. Still sober, but just, like my path took me all over the place. I ended up in the church world again for about 17 years. And there was a certain point, like when my oldest was about, like I can just mark it based on how old she was, but she was around 18 years old and she was in college. And I had the experience I had in the church world went bad, and there was like a lot of chaos. Like I was in, like, I won't get into all that, but there was just a lot of chaos. And there was one point just sitting, talking with my daughter, and we were talking, and like everything that I thought was firm and solid, like just fell apart. Like I can just remember the moment where it just like my mind was like just like everything that I thought I knew crumbled, about God, church, the world, who I was, like what marriage was supposed to be, like all of it just kind of just crumbled. And it was just a very uncomfortable place to be, because I like control. I like knowing what's next. I like knowing what's happening. And like that just, it threw me for a loop. And the short version is, at a certain point, it was just like there was just so much chaos in my head at that point. Like my mind was going crazy. I just felt like I was reactive to everything. Just like just always tense. Just always like, and at a certain point, the thought came to mind. Like, 'cause I had stopped going to church. I wasn't praying anymore. I wasn't doing any of that stuff. And the thought came, you should sit. and I don't know where that thought came from, but I still had like my meditation cushion from 20 years before in a closet upstairs. And I can remember pulling that, like digging through the debris at the bottom of the closet, finding this cushion that I'd never thrown out for whatever reason, and setting it up in my daughter's room because she was in college, so the room was empty, and then just trying to sit. And I don't know what I thought I was going to get out of it, but it was just like this need to do something, like just to do something. And that started my journey back with sitting meditation. So that would have been probably like 2018, 19, somewhere around there. And I started sitting on my own, and I'm like a book reader, you know what I mean? So it's like, so I was starting to study whatever I could get my hands on, just trying to read. And, like the internet's a wonderful thing. So many podcasts, so many YouTube videos, and just started to like absorb all this stuff. And that was good, but it still doesn't like knowledge doesn't fix that. To me, it was like this, AA described it perfectly in the big book, like this restless, irritable, and discontented state that I had. That's just what I felt all the time. And you translate that into like the Buddhist world. It's like, there's suffering. I mean, I was experiencing this suffering, and I was starting to see that like that suffering was just kind of caused by my own mind. You know what I mean? Like I could see a situation differently than my wife saw that situation. I could react to something differently than my wife reacted to it, or my kids reacted to it. It was just like I started to see that the problem was me. Like like that I was the source of like that suffering. You know what I mean? Like things could happen, but people could react to them like real calm, and me, I just get pissed about like everything. And so I kept continuing to sit, and then like because my mind was so busy, I used like apps, like guided meditation apps for a while, and then that became too noisy. Like eventually I was just like looking for silence, just looking for this silence. And I ended up back like just practicing on my own. I started to practice every day. I'd sit for like 30 minutes, and at a certain point, like the thought was just like, I should probably find like a teacher. And the thought was like, like the AA world, it's like there was a thing about sponsorship. Like if you were sponsoring yourself, it wasn't a really good situation. They made it more colorful, but it wasn't a good situation to be sponsoring yourself. And I was afraid I'd get weird if I just continued to like sit in my room by myself staring at the floor like that, like because like my mind was the problem. So like if I'm like, how do I know like like what thoughts are like am I crazy? All that type of stuff. So I ended up finding a group online, and I sat with them for a while, and it was good because I had access to a teacher. But they did like all this different stuff. It's similar to us, but it was different. They started their sitting stuff with like 20, I don't know, it felt like 20, it felt long, but like a lot of chanting. And it was a Japanese school, so it was all just like, na, 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 like just like this one cadence. And it was good. Like my mind kind of liked it, but it was still strange. What was good about that was like I started to be able to like talk to people, like because this was probably during COVID it was still happening, so a lot of Zoom practice, and through them I started to do like some one-day sits, like as COVID stuff kind of disappeared. They were like, oh, we're going to do a one-day sit. Most of their practice was online, but they started doing these one-day sits, and I started showing up to those when they did them, and it was good. You know what I mean? Like the practicing with other people, like in a room, is huge. Like it's just a very different energy. Even though like the technique, like my technique can be the same sitting home as sitting with people, but it's just like there's an energy to that combined people practicing together. And so I started, so it was good. I started to like that, and then there was that school, there was like a change that was happening. The teacher was only going to be available like for Zoom stuff on Thursday mornings, and I'm like, that seems kind of that's not going to work for me. And at some point I had signed up for like the mailing list for here, like the quantum school, one of them. I was on an email list, and they put out a thing about like this 21-day challenge that they do online. And so I was just like, screw it. I'll jump into that. I'd had a conversation with Dave at that point about the quantum school, and because I'd run into him out in the world, and I did that challenge, and as part of that challenge, they like our school, we have like these different practice forms. Like we have sitting meditation, which we did this morning. We have chanting meditation. We have walking meditation, and then we also have this practice called Gong practice, and I won't get into a lot of that. We can ask José about it later on. And but I ended up doing a Kongan interview with the teacher online, and there was a Kongan that I'd been working on with this other teacher for a while. And then when I came here, and I just kind of gave like my little bio to the teacher, just like we went through some stuff, and like all of a sudden something just like clicked. It was like our discussion about like primary point, and something just like it opened, I guess would be a term for it. And it was at that point I'm like, I'm gonna come back to this school, because in my mind, and this is like a pattern in my world, like I wasn't gonna do it because I'd been there before, and it was weird, and but like because like whatever she had said made sense, it was just like, I'm gonna do this. And I ended up doing an online interview with José, like I think the following week on a Tuesday, I think we had just kind of reopened from COVID shortly before that. So it was just like, what's the deal? Just you show up, like, do you need a mask, like all that type of stuff. And I started coming that following Sunday, and that would have been like in August. And when I came in, like it felt comfortable being here. It just felt comfortable, and there wasn't a lot of pressure to do anything. It was really easy to just come in here and just sit. You know what I mean? Like you could hang out if you wanted to, and you could also bounce as soon as it was done. Like there wasn't like hey, where you going? Sign this paper. There wasn't like all this craziness. You could just come. And I did that for a while. And what I've liked just coming here, like you don't have to believe anything coming here. Like you can just come, you can sit. There's like, you know, there's a lot of like teaching and all that type of stuff, but like at the end of the day, nobody really is like checking a list. Like do you believe the right things? You know, like it's just, what I've come to discover is like our practice is just, you know, like to just kind of discover our true self, whatever that means. Like understand our own mind, but you know, by sitting, like I can see how like all the chaos in my mind, like and I can learn that thoughts are just thoughts, and I don't actually have to attach to those thoughts. Like they can come, and I can even react to them briefly. But I can, like, just like our practice of like, you know, when we notice our mind's distracted, coming back to this moment with whatever your technique is, like I can just do that in the world. You know what I mean? Like I can get an email and I can find myself getting all revved up and angry. You know, I mean, like this mother, you know, like just like all that type of stuff, and then I can catch it, I can see it, and I don't actually have to go for the full ride anymore. Like I can just like, you know, what is this? What is this moment? You know, like in this moment, it's just like just an email. Like I don't have to answer it. Like or I can answer it later. Like I don't have to get into a screaming match with this guy in my head that he's not aware of. Yeah. So through the practice, like. There's been like a few things that just, like I don't know, it could be my age, but I've just become more and more aware of like the impermanence of life. And like it can kind of sound like a bummer, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, old age, sickness, and death comes for us all. You know, we're going to lose everything that we love. You know what I mean? Like just like like at some point, everything that we think is solid we're going to learn is not. And that can be depressing, but it, like for me, it's like, well, how do I live in light of that? Like, you know, like, and it's like this ordinary moments. There's like a kongan with Joju, like where the teacher tells him ordinary mind is the way. And like what that speaks to me about is just like, it's just those ordinary moments. You know what I mean? Like this morning, I'm sitting at the table drinking coffee with my wife, and I can't even remember what the word was, but I'm trying to say a word and I just could not get the word out, and like fumbling over it, and us both just laughing our asses off about it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I used to be like pride myself on like my mind's sharp, remember everything, and now it's just like just noticing these laps in my mind. You know what I mean? And it's just like laughing about it, because it's going to come for us all. You know what I mean? Like, and so might as well enjoy it, right? So like this, like the reason I keep practicing is just, is like I want to be present to the moment, like as it unfolds, like whatever that moment is, whether it's good or bad, and being able to be present and to respond to whatever that moment is, like in an appropriate way. You know, like whatever, you know, just, we talk about like having a strong center, and like Kongan practice helps us to like believe in ourselves and trust in this intuition that we have. And just this practice is teaching me how to do that and continues to teach me to do that. And that's why I continue to do it. Like the reminders are good. So with that, I think I've spoken long enough, and I thank you all for being here today.
Thank you, Brian.
You betcha.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you all. I was just mentioning to someone that it's so good to have a Sangha to come to. You know, it's beautiful, beautiful. Brian alluded to that, the energy of practicing with other people. It does make a difference. Some of us might like sitting by yourself, and there's some value in that. There's a lot of stories about people just sitting, but sitting with a Sangha makes you realize that in a way you're alone, but at the same time you're not. And that's the paradox, which is our life, and which is the Zen, is a paradox in itself. He mentioned this metaphor about dukkha, but actually dukkha is a word that means that if something is off, like the wheel has a hole and you have the axle. Dukkha is not quite right, like he said. So if you change the D for an S, sukha means everything is. So Buddhism, in a way, is going from dukkha to sukha, from a bad trip to a good trip. Yeah. So that's, in essence, what dukkha to sukha means. Yeah. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Because, as you all know, we tend to translate dukkha as suffering, and we understand that, but it gets a little heavy at times, or lots of times. Yeah. So, any questions?
Morning. Morning. I've been thinking a lot about how we talk about how things in our own mind, understanding our own mind, but how do we translate our practice into the world outside? And particularly, I'm thinking about, I've been thinking about for myself. I really want to help decrease the suffering of others, right? And that's kind of ultimately what I think, for me anyway, that what the goal should. So when we think about our own mind, how we do our practice, how do we translate that into the world to help decrease the suffering of others? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. So right now, what are you doing?
Asking a question.
Yeah, that's right. It's just that. Then you're already eliminating your suffering, and then in turn you eliminate the suffering of all of us. Yeah. But what happens is that we tend not to be here. And teachers will always ask you the question, what are you doing right now? And it's interesting. They ask me that question, and now I'm on the other side. I get to ask the question, and you can see. We go all over the place until something breaks and you realize it's just this. Yeah, it's just this. But that's very hard to believe. All we have is this moment. Intellectually, we kind of understand that, but it's hard to believe. It's got to be something else, really. We always have that desire of, it's got to be something else. It cannot be this. But it's just this. And that's what Zen points to. And in our practice, we sit at a lot of retreats, and the Buddha did that. And in a way, it helps you, if you have some type of practice, it helps you to slow down and see your mind. Yeah. He alluded to that, understanding our mind, but what does that mean? Yeah. In everyday life, it's very hard because things happen. I always make the comment that seems that they're faster than the speed of light. Yeah. Faster than the speed of light. Someone cuts you out in the highway and like instantaneously. Yeah, he mentioned that too. He used mother. Yeah. But if you slow down, you have a chance to see that. Yeah. Then if you observe that, yeah, then examine that. He alluded to the what's this. Yeah. And then if you observe that, and if you have some humility and honesty with yourself, you can admit it. And then you can digest it. And then you can use it. Yeah. And how do you do in everyday life? Pay attention to what's going on. Yeah. Carl may ask me, can you get me a cup of water? Yeah. See what happens. Is there resentment? Yeah. Huh? That appear? Why me? 10 people here, why me? Doesn't she see that I'm busy? Whatever it is. But normally we don't see that. But if you see it, how I bring the cup, here's the water. Yeah, you'll laugh, but it's true. Yeah, it's true. If you observe that and you're humble and you're honest, look at that. Why is this resentment coming up? Why is that? I vow to save all beings from suffering. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Yeah, that's part of that. But maybe it's possible. Maybe some people can do it. But for me, having some type of practice allows you to see that in your everyday life. It takes some time. But you can see that during the retreat, yeah, because you're sitting there at the monastery. It's a beautiful place. You're going to have that experience. And his stomach starts growling after lunch. He's like, why is that? Now you laugh. A lot of us have those experiences, because we have all these ideas. Yeah. So part of that is bringing the practice. It's just, as Zen Master Dae Kwang in Hong Kong, you remember we talked about the ABC. Yeah. A is just being aware of that moment. Oh, look at that resentment. It's happening. Yeah. B is, of course, breathe. That's the tool in every spiritual tradition. Breathe. Yeah. And then C for us is center. And you go back here. And that's a metaphor for the energy, because our energy is either here, yeah, for some of us, checking, thinking, or here, or emotions. Oh, she's so nice. Oh, I don't like him much. And yeah, or Dandian. The energy garden in Korea, I love that metaphor. Yeah. Center yourself. Yeah. Sometimes I find myself just feeling my 2 feet. God. Okay. Yeah. So use the practice, use the practice. And if you have that moment, just grab it with the being aware and breathe, And maybe another response rather than a reaction is possible. So.
Good morning, Sansanim.
Good morning, Diego. Good to see you.
You too. Could I ask you to expand a little bit about how rooting ourselves in this practice and in don't know mind helps us relate and function with the suffering of the world? Because it's true, originally, no suffering. I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. No problem. It's also true that millions of people are about to use their SNAP benefits. More are unemployed and in deep, deep financial insecurity, let alone medical health. There is very, very deep systemic self-reinforcing suffering going on all around us right now. How does Flores Brown help us work and address with that?
Yeah. So the question, briefly, is how our practice help us, deal with all the suffering, especially now. You can see it, you can hear about it, you read about it. And that is the Bodhisattva vow, great love, great sadness, And the first thing is to try to alleviate your own suffering, because if you're suffering, it's not easy to help other people, okay? Because if you're suffering, it's easy to get resentful, angry, and all that. And that is not it, That is not it. And especially now, it's very easy to be attached to our opinion or situation or condition. And all the factions know this, and they're just, doing that. If our center is strong, to use that metaphor, then, we can get swayed by that, but we can come back to a place where we can do something. And that something can be just chanting, or that something can be getting involved in the community, or that something can be donating some money, Depends on your situation and your abilities and all that. But it's important to have some type of center and to be able to see that from a place of peace, So there's I think Thich Nhat Hanh, to which he did a lot of peace march, And he was to tell the people that were walking with him, it's like, we are not demanding peace, We are making peace as we walk. It's very interesting. Because, it's easy to get enraged. And, so.
I might have an example on Diego's comments on how the practice can help us. as many of you know, my wife has a health scare going on right now. And she, over the last 20-something years, has been very hands-off in terms of my Buddhism and my Zen practice and stuff. She finds a value and stuff, but we don't talk about it a lot. But recently with her health scare, I told her that, you know, we're chanting for her. And it kind of, you know, she always thought chanting was a little weird every now and then when I'll do it in the house when she's there. But when I said, you know, I put in a chanting request for her, you could tell it affected her in a good way. And then that was amplified when just recently I called up Doug, our buddy Doug, which we go out to dinner with him and his wife every now and then. But we're in the car, we were killing two birds with one stone, namely driving someplace, and I put Doug on the phone, and he was very concerned. Tricia, how you doing? You know, we're chanting for you and stuff like that. And as soon as he mentioned the word chanting, she did something. It was evident that it was important or something. I'm not sure how to vocalize it. But right after that phone call, I called up Nancy and put her on speakerphone. And Nancy and Richard were together. It was just a couple days ago. And the first thing they said was, Tricia, how are you? How are you doing? We are chanting for you. And she lit up. She was like, thank you very much for chanting for me. So I don't know if that's a great example of how our practice can help the suffering of the world, but it certainly helped my wife in that moment. So,
thank you, Gary. I'm sorry to hear about that situation. Yeah, it's not easy, but chanting is very interesting. I always tell people like Brian, myself, that grew up either Catholic or Christians, that this is the closest we get to intercessory prayer, for people. Yeah, but it's something again that comes from the Sangha. We have these emails that get sent. Yeah, a little note about the situation, and it's beautiful because you chant. It's that intention. It's one of the things that you can do. First thing I said, well, you can chant. At least you can chant. But that chanting has, for the most part, no ulterior motive. It's just chanting for that person. Yeah. And that asking, how are you? Part of that practice too is learning to ask, how are you? But like you mean it. And also that you're ready for an answer. In our culture, in the American culture, I learned that over the years. How are you? Is just, you just say it. Yeah. Like most cultures have things like that. Just a phrase that you say when you see someone. How are you? But most of the time, you don't expect an answer. You don't want an answer because you don't have the time, or you don't want to get involved in that. But if you have some practice, how are you? Really, seriously. And if you have that centering, people can feel it, people can see it, And it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. You talk to, or you see the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa when she was alive, or anybody like that. You can see their eyes and you know that someone is home. Yeah. Most of us, when we talk to each other, we start talking, but you can tell we're just partially there. Yeah. So having some type of center and being there, especially when someone has a situation like that, just sincerely asking, how are you? They can feel that you're there. Yeah. And in those moments, a lot of times what people need to feel is that they're not alone, And it's simple, It's simple, but it takes some time to learn that. And a lot of times we feel so awkward because we don't know what to say. I mean, this person has some cancer or so what. But it's awkward. But you just there and say, how are you? And by the way, we're chanting for you. Makes a big difference. Plus, when you send those emails, you get emails from the Sangha from all over the world. A little sentence, a little something, and a lot of you have had that experience, and it helps. It's one of those strange things, if you want to call it. So that's one way of using our practice, using the chanting, not just for me, but for other people. I was talking to Edith the other day, and we were just talking about this phrase that we use, not for me. Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting because that has a meaning in English, not for me. But from the Bodhisattva point of view, means that it's not for me, just for other people. And that's a good antidote to pride, not for me. Yeah.
There's a question from the Zoom group.
Sure.
Does AI have Buddha nature, or could AI have Buddha nature?
Well, from one point of view, everything has Buddha nature. But from another point of view, AI has no Buddha nature. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Go ask AI and see what happens. Bring the answer. Do you have Buddha nature? Yeah. That'll be interesting. Yeah. That the whole thing is just very interesting because we're trying to create something, and we forget the piece about the A, artificial, the emphasis should be on the A, not on the I, in the artificial intelligence piece. But we don't understand ourselves, so we're trying to create something that is going to imitate us, but we have no idea, about ourselves. So from the Buddhist Zen point of view, it's a little worrisome because, if you try to understand your mind, you see that,
He's asking me to clarify the question verbatim. So, does Buddha nature AI?
Yeah. Or no? Good.
Thank you very much. On the AI part, when I was in Bodh Gaya, the Namgyal monks did a project, The Blessings of Cyberspace. So they had their view on it. And I recently asked AI, do you live in cyberspace? And it said yes. So, that was kind of interesting. My question, thank you very much for the talk. I work in recovery now, SCC out in Pittsfield. And a lot of folks, they come in, they've just done a detox. We have them like 2 to 6 weeks. And his story so related to what a lot of they are feeling and going through, how we're walking the path together, but we each have to lift our own feet. But you feel it when like the talks today, others are walking that path with you. Your steps are much lighter, and you have that support, but you are doing it, so that balance, yes, my path, our shared path. And the question is, helping these people start that path while their bodies come out of the detox? Any practical ideas? Because they really enjoy the stuff. His talk related so well to what a lot of them are asking me in the groups, so I'm going to play this for them after. And thank you.
Yeah, so maybe you can have Brian give a talk to them. And it's when you relate to someone, then makes it easier, And from the Buddhist point of view, the dukkha part, we all have that. There is suffering. There is suffering. We all have that suffering. So activities that they can do, you have that 12-step program, and some of the steps, are very practical. Having some type of centering activity. Could be sitting, could be just breathing, can be just a walk. But it's some type of activity that brings you back to you, plus the activity that also makes you connect to people. So Buddhism has those 3 pillars: the Buddha, which is your image there of you aspire to, the Dharma, which in a way are the teachings, but also the experiences in life, and then the Sangha. And you need all 3. You need all 3. So those communities provide that. Yes. In Spanish, we have this saying that so if you share a joy, then it doubles. But if you share some suffering or pain, then it halves. Yeah. Yeah. So it's kind of like relates to what you were saying about the steps and when you're sharing that. Yeah. Yeah. Good.
Hi, thank you. So when I'm sitting, I often notice that I'm checking whether I'm keeping don't mind, or don't know, sorry, don't know mind. And it's like, oh, am I keeping don't know mind? So then I start checking my own mind. But then I realize that if you ask a kid, are you keeping don't know mind? They would say, what is that? I'm playing with Legos. I'm running around the playground. And I feel like that's don't know mind, is that you don't check whether you have don't know mind. So I guess I wonder how to stop this compulsive checking. Like when you know the teachings conceptually and then you're checking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't check. Yeah. Yeah. Of course, that sounds very easy.
Right.
But that's what we practice. That's what we practice. So the moment you realize that you're checking, then you come back to the breath. You know, to that hack. You have a hack. You have that phrase that we use, clear mind, clear mind, clear mind, don't know. And we synchronize that with the breathing. So I mentioned this many times, our practice is a practice of coming back over and over and over and over again. Because you'll check, or it could be something else, you go to the past, you go to the future, yeah? But then there's a moment during sitting, maybe, may not happen, but as you sit regularly, you have these moments of enlightenment where you realize, oh, that's right, clear mind, clear mind, clear mind, don't know. And it may last a millisecond and off you go. But then you come back. And that's the practice part. No one can do that for you. But if you do it, then eventually it's a little better, quote unquote. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's interesting what you mentioned about the kids. Branda's my wife's niece, they just had a baby the beginning of October. And of course, you worry about your baby and stuff. And they had a little fire in their house, so they had to move to their husband's parents for a little bit, you know. So I sent a text, how's Ella? That's her nickname. Yeah. And it's very interesting what Brittany, my niece, replied, oh, Ella's fine. She knows no different right now. She knows no different right now. Yeah. That's that mind. Yeah. So he alluded to this koan, ordinary mind, or is the true way. You know. The punchline of the koan at the end is when Nanchuan asks Joju, why do you make right or wrong? Yeah. At this moment, Ella has no right or wrong. She's like 4 weeks old. Yeah. But it's interesting that her mother already understands that, and she doesn't practice that or anything like that. But I said, oh yeah, wow, interesting. Yeah. Because we make those differences. We make the right, we make the wrong. We make, and we keeping don't know mind, whatever. So that's why Zen place a lot of emphasis on not getting too attached to words. You read one story with the, Matsu says, "Oh, mind is Buddha," But then the same teacher later will say, "No mind, no Buddha." So no attainment with nothing to attain. It's always because for us humans, it's very easy to get attached to stuff. Very easy. To the teaching, to the ropes, to the sticks, to the title, whatever it is, So that's where we help each other, to do that. I mean, he alluded to finding a teacher to make sure that he wasn't going crazy and all that. Yeah, that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect is for that, for us not to get too attached to things. Sansanim, there's also this thing that I like a lot is don't make, don't hold, don't attach. Don't make, don't hold, don't attach. And if you see meditation, even if you don't see it, you notice that we make a lot of things. Yeah, a lot of things. thinking, checking, blah, 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 blah. We even have this expression in English that for me is funny. Entertaining an idea. We do entertain ideas, if you see, you know, yeah. But after we make stuff, if we entertain it too long, then we start holding on to those ideas, yeah. And if we start holding on to them too long, then we become attached. And then if we become attached, then we start generating suffering for ourselves and suffering for other people. So that's a very nice formula. Again, another hack. Don't make, don't hold, don't attach. Yeah. So that's part of that. So going back to your first question, you know, if we have some type of practice and we're able to slow down a little bit, you know, then we can observe that. Yeah. Oh, I'm making stuff. Yeah. And then Sansanim also used to say, put it all down. That means, okay, if you see yourself, just put it down. Yeah. As we'll say in Brooklyn, I don't have that accent. I hope. It's too bad Michael Solomon's not here. You know, forget about it. You know, it's the same idea. Yeah. So, thank you all for coming, for being here, and being the Sangha that we have. May you all be happy. May you all be free from suffering. May you all be calm and clear and help this world.
Thank you, Brian and Zen Master, for your wonderful talks. Just a few announcements. If you got a space all the way in the parking lot, you may have noticed that we have a new clothing donation bin. And that's a partnership with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Rhode Island. So if you're getting rid of your old clothes, linens, anything you want to get rid of, that's one way to help us, help this great organization, and also help other beings. This Tuesday, we're going to have Kongan interviews with our own Zen Master Gong. And we also have a bunch of fun stuff coming up. Not to say that Kongan interviews are not fun. First of all, we have we have an art sale. One of our Sangha members, Willie Garver, has donated some beautiful original Buddha drawings. You can see those in the front hallway. And any proceeds benefit our Zen Center. We're going to have Zen's Giving dinner Wednesday, November 19th. We're going to have arts and crafts holidays, which is going to be, we'll make some holiday decorations, and we will put up our Zen's Giving tree right here in the Dharma room. And of course, we have a number of retreats, Christian Buddhist retreat coming up this month in a couple of weeks. We have a 7-day YMJJ retreat, and we also have Kilcha starting off in January. You can find all that information online. The precepts deadline is November 17th, and precepts will be offered on Buddha's Enlightenment Day on December 13th. So if you are interested in taking precepts, you can still speak to one of our co-guiding teachers about that. Last but not least, we're going to have some extra special sweet refreshments outside, and the gift shop will be open. I will see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us for the Providence Zen Center live stream. We do a live stream every Sunday. Join us for practice at 9:30 or join us for the talk at 10:45. Thank you.